My, oh my, you all are rich. You are. As we were driving down the long way through yesterday, I realized that we are in God's country. You see, everything to me, there's an analogy to chocolate. So I got thinking yesterday, because we've covered a lot of the Maritimes. The Maritimes is like a brownie. And then you get to Nova Scotia, and it's a scoop of homemade vanilla ice cream on top of it. But wait, I'm not done. Then you get to the south shore of Nova Scotia, and it's this big lump of hot fudge on top of the brownie. Am I right? I mean, there's 7 billion people on this planet that would love to live in a place as beautiful as you live. One of the secrets of richness is counting our blessings and realizing all the things that we take for granted that so many never get to enjoy. You see, you could also go to, there's a website, don't do it right now on your phone, but there is one called globalrichlist.com. There is a site like that, globalrichlist.com. And I did some investigation on you people, and what I found out is that in the country of Canada, if you have a household income of $41,000 gross, you are in the top 1% of the entire planet. 1%. Have you ever wished, well, I wish I could be the 1%? Those rich people, a household income in Canada, total $41,000, you're in the top 1% in the entire world, the country that we live in. So we are blessed. And yet some of you don't feel very blessed today. You feel hopeless. It's true. All of us probably in the room, if you don't feel hopeless today, you remember a day not long ago or in your past that you did when it came to your finances. Am I right? I mean, let's just be honest. Life is hard, and it's hard to make ends meet and stretch a dollar. And so we know what it is to feel hopeless, and I'm here today to give you hope. I really am. I'm here to give you hope. And if there's one thing that you leave these doors at the end of the day with, I want it to be hope. I'm going to tell you some hard things here today, and you're going to feel like, man, he's tough. But please don't take it that way. I have to be, because sometimes we have to be kind of moved out of our comfort zone. If we want change, it can be painful. But I am here to give you and provide hope. I believe there is hope for every living, breathing person in this room and every family, no matter what your situation. But you know what? Some of you came in here dragging inside financially, feeling like, well, other people can have hope, but you don't know my situation. I will tell you that there is hope, but it also comes with 2 other 4-letter words. What provides that hope is 2 things, and I don't want you to miss this. It's work, W-O-R-K. It's work. It doesn't come easy. Nobody's going to, while you're sleeping at night, plant a money tree in your backyard. And I'm taking it by the fact that you're here today, that you didn't win any lottery last night. We stopped to get some gas, and they were more interested in, was I going to get a ticket, than I was even paying for my gas. I guess that's just kind of a natural thing that everyone does. But you're here today, I'm here today, we didn't win the lottery, so it's work. It's a lot of work. And the second thing is time, T-I-M-E, another 4-letter word. If you're going to have hope, you've got to put work into it, and you've got to put time into it. And I give you huge props this morning by the fact that you know this is a big sacrifice, and I know it's a big sacrifice for you to be here today. You took time. This truly can be a life life-changing day if you let it. It can be. It can be life-changing. You are going to hear everything that you need to know. I mean, this is like the Genesis to Revelation in a few hours of everything you need to know about finances to be successful. But here's what I want to leave. Here's what I want to plant this seed early on, and that's this. Okay, so this side of the room from the center line over, what you're going to repeat after me is these words. Are you ready? Come on, we got to outdo those guys. Are you ready? You're going to repeat, information is good. 1, 2, 3, go.
Information is good.
All right, you heard them, right? Your job over here is to repeat these words. Implementation is great. Okay, are you with me? 1, 2, 3, go.
Implementation is great.
So information is good, but implementation is great. It is a fact that unless you just turn me off and read Facebook the whole time that you're here sitting and listening, you are going to get information that can be life-changing. But you are wasting your time. In fact, I'm going to give you an easy ticket to go home, watch cartoons, and then whatever you do in the afternoon, and get you off the hook from staying here if you don't plan on implementing any of the things that I tell you. Because if you take copious notes, front side of the page, back side of the page, and all this, and it's awesome, and you just think this is the greatest thing in the world, and you go home and you put it on the shelf and say, wasn't that good? I got all the answers I need today, and you don't implement what you heard, you have literally wasted a Saturday. I don't want any of you to waste a Saturday. So I'm hoping that on the early side of today, in the beginning, you will make a commitment. And this may be the most important thing you hear in the whole lesson today, is that not only will you get the information, you will implement the information. So, 1, 2, 3. Are you ready? You know what your words are? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Information is good.
But, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Implementation
Is great. Yes. Okay. So, I told you that I was going to give you hope. There are 3 little quotes that I want you to see. Look at number 1. Money is not the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. That's Zig Ziglar. Try to live a day, a week, a month, a year, a lifetime without money. It doesn't work. It's not the most important thing in life. We know what is, don't we? Being a Christ follower in my life is the most important thing in my life, but wow, it's really difficult to live life in North America without money to pay the bills and to get by. And so it leads me to the second one. You have no choice. You have no choice but to learn about money. You don't have to like my brownies with vanilla ice cream, and yes, I would have it for breakfast, with hot fudge on top of it. You don't have to like that. You don't have to like the teams that I like, the Nashville Predators hockey team. You don't have to like that team. You have a choice. You can choose who you like. So here in this area, who's your favorite hockey team? Some of you are a little reluctant. You're a little embarrassed with your team, are you? I mean, I put mine right out there. Nashville Predators. But you have no choice when it comes to money. There's certain television programs you don't ever have to turn on and like. You don't ever have to follow. Yes, and it's a beautiful thing here in South Shore of Nova Scotia. Every other thing you hear and see is not Trump mania. Yes, Oh, thank God for the reprieve of a few days here. But you have no choice when it comes to money. It's one of those necessary things. It was so necessary that God put in the Bible 2,350 verses that have something to do with money. Do you know that that's more than prayer, faith, heaven, and hell combined? 2,350 verses in the Bible. God says, you guys need a lot of help in that area. And he put it right there. And then the next thing that I want you to see is by Jim Rohn. He's a motivational speaker. He passed away, but his words, living, and teaching continues today. Formal education can make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. Today, you're here getting self-education. Now, I can't promise all of you a fortune, but you know what? What I'm hoping is that we at least get survival, okay? So change that to formal education can make you a living, but self-education can give you survival. That's my story. I don't know about you. I'm sure that you are very, very proud of all of your teenage years. But part of my narrative in life is that I'm not so proud of all of my teenage years. And you look up here and you hear Christy give these introductions of, he's on CNBC and Fox Business and television, and right now in Nashville, Tennessee, it's 7:35, and from 7 till 8 on 2 talk radio shows. I'm really magic because I'm here, but I'm also giving a 1-hour presentation on the radio, Beacon Retirement Strategies, on 2 top radio stations in Nashville. And then at about 11 o'clock our time here, 9 o'clock there, there'll be a 30-minute television show on NBC in Nashville called Beacon Retirement Strategies, where I will be on television teaching people about finances. And that, my friend, is the greatest miracle that you could ever imagine if you knew our history. My wife and I grew up in wonderful families, taught all the right things to do, given all the right opportunities, had big dreams for college and career, and going to make something really great out of our life. But because of some really poor choices in early teenage years, we found ourselves at the ripe old age of 16 facing the fact that we were going to be parents. No finish high school for this guy. No finishing high school for her. No college. Children having children. No hope. Life is over. The possibility of me being here today teaching you this stuff is 1 in millions without God. But aren't you glad that there's a God? Only God could bring about the story and the narrative of our life, because a baby was born after a marriage between 11th and 12th grade. A baby was born, her name is Ginger, in November of our senior year. We did finish high school, which was miraculous. Had a baby to feed, work to go to, school to go to. All of a sudden went from life is just fun and games to now it's hard work and responsibility. And probably divorce, living on welfare, food stamps, whatever, poverty. I mean, that's the kind of life that faced us in our circumstances, but God. But God. We have hope here today because of but God. No matter what your circumstance, you write your story and then put the words after it, these two words, but God. That makes all the difference in the world, because I'm nothing special. But this beautiful lady right here is. And I want you all to give a hand for the person who made it possible that we actually didn't get divorced, but we actually celebrated July the 31st of this year, 42 years of marriage. This is Jenny Benson, the star of the family. I get up and I'm the face of the family, but every family has the backbone behind the scenes. You know what I'm talking about? The real star, the real person that makes things happen? Absolutely, and I mean that with all of my heart. She kept us on center. She kept us on point. And so we did go and finish high school, did go on to college. I mean, we had the audacity to think that with no money, no jobs, no anything, piled a few pieces of furniture, couldn't even fill the back of a pickup truck on Grand Manan Island, went to Sussex, New Brunswick, without a place to stay, without a job, without a single dollar to go to college, not a clue in our head, but somehow we felt like that was the right thing to do. And so here we are, just going up there, saying somehow we got to make this happen. There was a lot of God, but there was also a lot of hard work and a lot of time put into it. And what we realized was that money wasn't the most important thing in life, but it was reasonably close to oxygen if we were going to have money to pay for a little apartment, buy food for 3 of us, pay for college, and all those kind of things. These two people, if I can use this phraseology, worked like dogs. It didn't just flow from heaven. God allowed us to get through, but I'm telling you, there was a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of discipline. And what I realized is that we had no choice but to learn about finances. I mean, people who have like just bukus of money falling from the sky to them, and they've just got tons of trust fund money from their parents. I mean, maybe they can get away without learning about money, but I couldn't. And so what I realized is that every single dollar needed to be stretched as far as it needed to be stretched. And so formal education can make me a living, and that's what I was going to college for, but self-education could make me a fortune, but it wasn't. I scratched that out and it was there for survival. And so what I did is I started learning and self-educating myself. There wasn't, where's Christy? There wasn't Google back then, but there was a library. So I went to the Sussex Library and our college library, and I looked for every book there possibly was to learn about money, because if anyone needed to know about money, it was somebody who had no money. It was 18 years old, faced with adult responsibilities, and going off to college with, I had no place, we had no place thinking that we could go off to college unless there was a way that God was going to intervene, and 2, that we were going to learn about this difficult subject, and we were really going to work very, very hard. So I put TIME. I put time into educating myself about finances. Never to think that I would be teaching a room full of people and on the radio and television teaching other people about it. It was just for us to survive. But I went to school and it took a lot of time. And so, I mean, you know, we all have a story, and y'all probably could talk me under the table when it comes to work, but we worked very hard going to school, caring for a baby. Jenny worked 2 or 3 part-time jobs, teaching people piano lessons and babysitting other little children. If she had Ginger, then there were other children in the neighborhood that needed children. So anything to make $1. And so then I went to school, and then I came home, and then I worked seriously 2 or 3 different jobs, there was a Metropolitan. You remember those department stores way back when, 35 years ago in Sussex? And I worked there in the electronics department. And then I cleaned the bathrooms down at the chapel at the college before chapel started each morning. And then I went out to the sawmill, and between midnight and 4 a.m., though I have serious allergies, that was the best job, because we would go out, they would work for like 20 hours on the machine sawing wood, and the sawdust and everything. It was just a disaster. And so they shut the place down for only like 4 hours a day. Then they worked like 2 10-hour shifts, making 20 hours that they actually worked in the sawmill, but nobody cleaned up anything. So what they did was they hired some of us students from college to go out there between midnight and 4 a.m. to clean the machines and clean the floor for the next crew that started to come in. And so they worked 2 more 10-hour shifts, and then we'd go and do the same thing. And they paid us really good by their standards to do that. That meant a lot to me, but somewhere in there, somebody had to sleep a little bit, but I don't know how we did. And again, I'm not here to tell you that we've got the saddest story, but I am wanting you to understand that some of the things I will admit that today in our period of life that somehow God has chosen to put us in, I don't live in the real world financially. But it's very important that the people that I talk to understand that I can relate. Because for the first 20 years of our married and financial life, everything was a struggle, and every dollar mattered, and budgeting to the core, and sacrifice and work, and all of those things that you may be doing right now. Believe me, our situation merited all of that. But as time went on and I began to learn a lot of these things and began to apply them and teach them, about 20 years ago, a little bit over, I really felt like God saying that the story that we had written and the things that I had learned, now it was my turn to help teach other people those same principles. So I never saw that coming. That wasn't what you never know on the journey with God where He may lead you. And the chances of me, a little Seal Cove Grand Mananner that literally messed up their life before they could even finish 11th grade, be standing here and on television and the radio and writing books and teaching people literally now almost all over the world about finances. I mean, that's not 1 in a million, it's 1 in hundreds of millions. So I'm here to give you hope today. That's a long introduction, but that's very important, because if you don't have hope, you can get all the information, write the things down. You're going to put it on a shelf and say, yeah, but he doesn't know me. Yeah, but that works everywhere else, but it isn't going to work with me. So the main thing I'm here today to give you is hope. And sometimes the best hope that you can give people is help them to understand that I know exactly where most of you have been. You may have even a worse story than that, but for the most part, there aren't that many that are worse than the beginning, the hole that we put ourselves in, and then to where we're at today. With God, all things are possible. And if you get the information and then you implement it, and that's very important. We have a few pastors in the crowd here today. Raise your hand up proudly if you pastor a church in any capacity. Yep, so here's the truth, and these guys would say a hearty amen. And listen, it's true of us too, because we are, as pastor, we're also part of the congregation. We're part of you because we're still on the journey too, but it's this. When it comes to spiritual things, many people are educated spiritually far beyond their level of obedience. Let that sink in for a second. We're educated far beyond our level of obedience. Our problem isn't that we need to learn more, it's we need to obey the things we already know. Amen? So today I'm going to give you the information, But more than anything, I want to motivate you to actually do some of these things. And if it seems too big a task, at the end, I'm going to get you to just pick 3 things that you can take from this, because it's going to be overwhelming, and you're going to say, oh my goodness, he wants me to do all that? So you have to eat the elephant how? One bite at a time. So I want you to be thinking already at the end, we're going to star 3 things that you say, when I go home, starting tomorrow morning, I'm going to do these 3 things. So you all ready to go on this journey with me? All right, fire it up. Here we go. So, number 1, first thing you need to do is partner with God. Write that in the blank. And I'm going to really encourage someone in the family, if you're here as a couple, to take really good notes. Because you're not going to remember all this, because, again, we're going from Genesis to Revelation today. There's no, follow-up sermon again next week in the next 10 years. This is it. And I really encourage you to get my book. And if you can't pay anything for it, take it. But if you can and donate, all the proceeds are going to worthy cause. I'm not going to take any of it. That's our donation to you guys, to your community. I believe in that. God honors that. But the first thing you need to do is realize that we all need to partner with God. God became our partner. He became the third chord, and he knew so much more. I mean, he put 2,350 verses in the Bible. He knew all that we needed to know about finances. And so I studied other things, but what I also realized is that we needed to partner with God. Now, this is going to be a hard question, and it's meant to be. It's going to feel convicting, and it's meant to be. How many of you would be honest, and you don't have to raise your hand, jump up and down, or say amen, but how many of you would be honest and say that over the last month, 6 months, and year, you have actually probably spent more time worrying, stressing, or complaining about your financial situation than you have actually fervently praying to God about your financial situation? Now, when it's prayer time, I understand that finances is personal. That's why, Christy said, we're not going to ask for your bank statements. I don't have to know anything about you financially. You're probably going to know more about me than you wanted to know financially today. But we're not going to ask for all that. But it's very, very important that we understand that we need to partner with God, and we need to take this to God in prayer. When it comes to prayer time, what are the prayer requests? Well, and I'm not belittling this, Aunt Bessie's going to have a little surgery tomorrow, and somebody else bumped their head, and somebody this, and all, and it's all these things that aren't personal, and all those things matter. They all matter greatly. But it's very difficult to say in a group, well, we're really struggling with this financial situation. Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a safe place somehow that you could go with people and you could just really bare your soul and say, this is a struggle, and I need God to help, and I need you guys to pray with me. But if you can't get there, at least as a couple or a family, or if it's just you by yourself, find a prayer partner or just you, and let's make it a matter of prayer. And maybe ours was just desperation. God, you've got to help us. But we spent a fair bit of time praying about our finances, because we realized that we had no idea what we were doing. We put ourselves as mere children in an adult situation, and nobody had taught us any of that either. We had great parents, took us to church and taught us all great things. I wouldn't trade anything for either of our parents. I love her parents, she loved mine, and it's like we grew up together anyway, 7 houses apart on Grand Manan. I was born in March, she was born in July. We've just always been together. I mean, we went to kindergarten when we were that high. But you got to partner with God. You got to bring Him into it. And you can't be embarrassed to say, because, look around the room. Every person in here has had and is having financial stress, worry, and challenge in their life. That's just a given. You're looking at one, and I think I'm looking at many. And that's okay. That's just one of those things. Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. 1 Chronicles 29:12, both riches and honor come from you, O God. You reign over it all. And then Deuteronomy, I love this, chapter 8. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me, but remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. In other words, to pay your bills. It is He that gives you the ability, so your first thing should be, God help me. It's okay. You say, oh, he's tired of listening to me whine. No, he isn't. He wants to hear you rely on His power to get you through the situation. He yearns for that. Just like you love it when your young children need you. Daddy, teach me how to tie my shoe, or help me with this, or throw the ball, or whatever, right? God wants to hear us come to Him. And He's the owner of everything. And I'm asking you today, you say, I thought you were going to teach us about budgeting and things. Believe me, there's plenty of that in there. But what I'm really here to teach you is that budgeting actually isn't the first step to financial freedom. This is it right here. This is what we did. We had no hope in and of ourselves. We could have just said, well, we screwed up our life. We're just going to pay for it forever. And we're just going to try to figure this thing out. Probably be divorced in 2 years. Like most teenagers at 17 that get married. I remember in the Seal Cove Wesleyan Church, the night that her and I decided that we had no hope of success in our life, in our marriage, in our home, in our finances, or anything else for that matter, unless we came to God. And it was a very difficult thing in front of your own church to walk up that aisle and come down front and kneel down and admit to everyone there that we literally had let them down and thrown our lives away. And we had no hope apart from God. And in that moment, we said, God, whatever is going to be with our life, we're going to partner with you. And if we're going to have any success to pay our bills, to stay married, to raise our children, we have no idea what we're doing. We need you. So number one, you've got to partner with God. And you just say, if you're sitting there today and you just say, well, let's skip on to the real good stuff that we wanted you to teach us. Believe me, there's going to be plenty of that, but this is the top priority. This is number one. If you only go on to the other things, you'll never really be, in my opinion, fulfilled financially the way you need to be. So let's go on to the second one, though. The second one is plan to succeed. Folks, you got to have a plan. What's your plan? If I were to say to you, you don't have to show me your bank statements, but for me to continue on with the rest of this seminar and teaching that could be life-changing for you, I need all of you to walk up here and hand me your financial plan for the next 1 year, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years. Just hand it to me. Chances are there would be less people than the fingers on this hand that actually has that. And guess how many people in this room need to have that? Guess how many families need to have that? It's your roadmap. Every single one of you needs to have a financial plan. Well, I don't know how to make a financial plan. It's very, very simple. All you do is you find a blank piece of paper, and at the top you say, next 12 months. Listen to me now. Just next 12 months. What are the top 3 financial goals that we as a family should have? Pay off the second car. Save at least $1,000 for kids' college. We need a roof on our house. We need to save up $3,000 for XYZ. Guess what? Now you're again in the top 1% of North American families that actually have a written plan of what they're aiming at. John Maxwell tells a story about Charlie Brown. Do we still know about Charlie Brown and Lucy and all those characters up here in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia? Oh, they teach us some beautiful lessons. So here's what most people do, like Charlie Brown. You see, Charlie Brown, in the cartoon, in the first frame, he's got a bow and arrow, and he's pulling back the arrow, and he's pointing it, and he lets it go, and the arrow goes into the fence. And then the next frame of the cartoon shows Charlie walking up to the fence, and the arrow is stuck in it, and he begins to paint a bullseye around the arrow. And Lucy, who has all the answers all the time, comes up and says, "But Charlie, that's not how it's done." And he looks at Lucy, thinking she always has the last word, but he does, and said, "Yeah, but this way, I never miss. I never miss." So here's what we do. We come to the end of a year, and we look back, and we see where our money went, and we say, "Hey, see, yeah, that's what I meant for it to do." No, we didn't. I'm going to ask you to begin to look at 12 months ahead and begin to write down a plan. This is, as Christy, who is our real teacher here today, that was awesome, by the way, said, now I'm telling my money where to go, instead of later looking back and seeing where it went. So you've got to have a plan. You've got a plan to succeed. It's very biblical. A prudent man foresees the difficulties ahead and prepares or plans for them. This is Proverbs 22:3. But the simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. I will admit, I have been a simpleton many, many times. And I paid the consequences, and it hurt. And then I begin to realize I need to be a prudent man or woman, and I need to foresee ahead. I need to plan. So here's what you need to do. This is so good. You need to have a plan, a written plan. So one of the things that you need to do, if it's just you, then you do it. If it's a single mom, a single dad, you're on your own financially, you sit down with a cup of coffee. I forgot to also mention, not just a pretty place here, but y'all got Tim's everywhere. All we have is Starbucks down our way. Man, that coffee was good this morning. I could go for more of that sometime before the day's over. Some of you are like, yeah, I could use some right now if you don't hurry up. Hang on, she just gave me the signal, so we're going to be on time for break. Are you staying awake so far? You got to have a plan. So what you do on the back of one of those sheets, you put number one, the first part of your plan is the next 12 months. This is the most important, and you pick the top 3 financial goals that you want to meet. And don't say, I want to be a 10 millionaire, okay? I mean, like, set something realistic that you need to do, but not just paying something off, but also other positive things, like investing a certain amount. Or we're going to put $50 a month into a reserve fund. Pick your top. You may have more than 3, you're allowed to, but star 3 of them that are going to be your main goals for the next 12 months. And then underneath that, about 3 more inches down, you write years 2 through 5. What are some other things? This isn't rocket science, but nobody does it. Again, you can be in the top 1%, 5% that actually have a plan. And next time I come back, if y'all have me, everybody be waving their plan. Okay, Pete, we brought them this time, but you've got a 2 to 5 year plan, and those are the things that you know you're going to need another car, or you need to build on, screened-in porch on your home, or you need to pave the driveway, or you want to, or you really want to pay the mortgage off. and you could do it within 5 years if you really put your mind to it. Or you're going to get out of debt. Or at least maybe not get out of debt. That's some random whatever. But maybe it's this particular card is going to be gone during that period of time. So 2 to 5 years. Then 5 to 10 years. And then 10 to 20. And then 20 plus. So you've got 5 categories. 12 months. That's the first year, year 1. Years 2 through 5. Years 6 through 10, 10 through 20, and then 20 through... And this isn't fancy. Oh, Pete, is there an app for that? There probably is, but don't use it. Use paper and put it somewhere. And here's... Ginny's used to me doing this, but it's like every point I want to make, I'm like, this is the most important one of the day. First, it was partner with God. That was the most important because that's the one I was on then. Now, this is the most important, but now it's the sub-most important in the most important of plan to succeed. You're going to have a plan. You're going to paint a bullseye first. How many in the room, within 1 week, promise Pete, because I came here just for this, promise me that as messy as it is on the back of an old piece of paper that got crumpled up, how many of you promise me that you will do that one thing that I just told you sometime within the next week? Anybody? Come on now. Yes, I came for you. You are the people I came for because information is good, but implementation is best. We're going to say that a lot today. So that's good. Oh, Pete told us. Now, there's way more ways to be more elaborate in a plan, but don't worry about getting there. Just do this because now you're ahead of 99% of the people that live within 1,000 miles of you. You are. So you've got to have a plan. Now, here's the most important thing that I told you was going to be the most important until 5 minutes from now when I give you the really most important. But this is really important, okay? Are you with me? Write this. You got to write this phrase down. Treat your family finances like a business. I'm going to actually let you take time to write that. You have to treat your family finances like a business. If the church raised $100,000 and that was their budget for the year, and you attend that church, would you think that they should have a plan of how that money was going to be distributed? And if they had a board, that they should actually meet and discuss how that would be utilized? Anyone in the room think that should happen in a church? Church is like a business. If you own a fish plant down here in Yarmouth, or Rudder's Restaurant. Man, was that ever good last night. All I do is talk about food in front of people who are waiting for the break time about food. Man, that seafood chowder was amazing. But if the church had a $500,000 budget, would you think that, or they were going to bring in 12 months, $500,000. Do you think that there should be a plan for that? I mean, come on now. Does it make sense to anybody in the room? If a family in the South Shore of Nova Scotia, during their 40 years of earning capacity, averages $40,000 a year of total income, by 40 years, that's $1.6 million. If I had a business that had $1.6 million that I was going to be entrusted with, should I have a plan for that? Anybody believe that? What if $50,000 for 60 years? Ginny's dad was a lobster fisherman off the coast of Grand Manan for 63 years. Anyone here a lobster fisherman? You been one more than 63 years yet? You haven't beaten him yet then. 63 years. He was a lobster fisherman. If he worked for 60 years and averaged $50,000 a year, that's $3 million. Do you think if there was $3 million that he was going to be entrusted with, he should have a plan for that? You see, we only look at, well, Pete, last week or 2 weeks ago or last month or last year I made this. But you don't realize over your lifetime how much you might actually be entrusted with. Does that seem then like enough money to have a plan? Treat your family finances like a business. What's this people here in the front? You're going to be picked on. What's your name again? Mike. I met Mike. And is this, do you know these people over here?
My niece and my wife.
All right, niece and you went to Kingswood, right? Look at this. She heard me at Kingswood. She came to the front row. Next time you come back, you're going to want to be in the front row too. She's a smart gal right here. What's your last name? Smith. The Smith family business. You folks right there, what's your last name? Wallace? The Wallace Family Business, LLC, Inc. No, you got to treat your family finances like a business. You got to have a plan. How many minutes do I have? 7 minutes. Okay, hang on. Don't go away. I hope that you'll promise yourself and your spouse, and you'll pinky swear. Is that okay to do in church? Pinky swear. AJ, you all right with that? Okay, he's good. Thumbs up. That you're going to begin to put a plan together so that you can succeed. It's very biblical. Let me give you one more verse. Any of you pastors, people that attend churches ever hear this one before? Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? Or does he just point the arrow into the fence and paint the bullseye around it? Or should you sit down if you're going to build onto the church or a new church, Havelock, Nova Scotia? Where are you? In the back. You're going to build a new church or build a piece on or paint the building. And I don't know about the rest of the churches, so I apologize. But I mean, it looks beautiful in here, the way the AJ's been telling me about some of the changes y'all have made. But you have to sit down. There's probably a board of trustees and people who sit down. And before you do that, don't you think you need to have a plan? You get estimates on what it's going to cost us and that kind of thing? Or do you just start in? I mean, that takes a lot of faith. Maybe that is the way you should do it. But I think we should have a plan. And not that this is a competition, but if you actually have a plan, and it doesn't have to be any more elaborate than what I've just discussed it for you, and then begin to treat your family finances like a business. Now I'm going to really get myself in trouble. Any of you who are pastors or serve on a board or any leadership position in a church, do they ever have meetings? Are there board meetings or trustees meetings or anything? Why would they want to get together? Just to drink coffee and have brownies with ice cream and not invite me? I mean, they get together because they're going to plan for the rest of the year, for the next month, or for into next year. Does that make sense to anybody? So here's the next thing before we go to break, and we're going to go to break immediately after you write this down. Set a time and day for a monthly family business meeting. That's so important. So what you do is you got that crumpled up piece of paper. Or you could put it on your iPad and be all fancy on the notes page and all that kind of stuff and put down 0 to 12 months. And if that's the way you want to operate, good. But I'm trying to get you off the hook from anything elaborate, because when we started out, there was no iPads, there was no Apple, there was no computer. And so you wrote it on a piece of paper, and this was the plan. And so here's what you do. You write down what your goals are and what your plan is for your finances, short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, forever goals. And then once a month, maybe it's on a Saturday morning if that works for you. Maybe it's Sunday morning before you get ready for church if that's not too busy. Maybe it's Sunday night before Monday hits and all the chaos of the week. And you sit down with that pad of paper in front of you. You have a cup of coffee or tea or something like this, and you sit down. It doesn't have to be any more than 15 or 20 minutes. And it's an intentional meeting that you set a time. Any of you pastors, if you have board meetings, is there a set night, like it's the second Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock or anything like that? Or do you just decide like a day before and you just call the people and say, I think tomorrow we'll have a board meeting. I kind of got a nudge from God, and I think tomorrow, or maybe even tonight, is a good night for a board meeting. You know what? I think we'll have it tomorrow morning at Tim Hortons down here. Although you'd have a hard job getting in. Every truck in Yarmouth was there. And they were all there for the board meeting. I almost stood up and said, well, I'm glad you're here. Is this the financial meeting that y'all invited me to? But no, seriously, how does that sound? Once a month, you sit down, you pull out those goals, and you ask yourself, are we getting closer to those? Did we make any incremental progress? Are the goals realistic? Do we need to pare them back? Are we going to hit them sooner than we thought? And you've got to monitor how that goes. Does all that make sense? So you got to partner with God, plan to succeed, write the plans down on a piece of paper so you now have your bullseye, and then begin to treat your family finances like a business. I told you it takes work and it takes time, T-I-M-E. I'm saying 30 minutes at most a month. If you want to do it weekly, great. I don't want the bar to be set too high for anyone. Once a month, 12 times a year, needs to be a set day and a set time or it's never going to get done. Someone in the family's got to take the lead and say, we're going to sit down with a cup of coffee. We're going to sit this on the table in front of us. We're going to discuss it. It might only need 5 minutes this month. It might need 30 minutes. We're going to do it, and then we're going to regroup next month. All that sound good? How does a break sound to everybody? All right, let's do it. We'll be back in 15 minutes, right? The boss said right, 15 minutes. Look at your watch right now, 15 minutes.